Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. Peter preached the first sermon on Pentecost. He could hardly have imagined that he was shaping a new way of life in Christ for all people in Catholicism that would become Roman. There was nothing Roman about Jesus' life until his saving death. The cross, Christianity's central symbol, was in fact a Roman execution device. The fact that Rome supplied the cross that redeemed mankind is not the cause of Catholics' intense appreciation and veneration of the city. That began just a few decades after Peter's first sermon. David Bonagura joins us. David, author of most recently 100 Tough Questions for Catholics, Common Obstacles to the Faith Today, prolific author and professor at St. Joseph's Seminary and Catholic International University. David, my friend, great to speak with you again. How are you?
Good, Marcus. Thanks for having me again.
It's always good to reconnect with you. So, on the eternal allure of Rome, how often do you think about the Roman Empire?
It's funny. The whole time I didn't think of that little, I don't know what that was, a meme or
Not
whatever.
once?
I didn't think of it once, believe it or not. I think of the Roman Empire, but I didn't think of the meme spreading the thinking about the Roman Empire once over the last, I don't know, however long.
Yeah, my bride.
News cycle, I suppose.
My bride tricked me into that. She asked me over, I think it was after dinner once, and I said, yeah, just about every day. And she just almost rolled on the floor laughing, and then she told me it was a meme.
Yeah, exactly. The meme is beyond me, but Rome is in my heart.
So, Rome is in your heart, and that's not because we are Romanists. It is because there's a certain Roman quality about the Christian faith, Catholicism. So, starting with a blank slate there, tell us about what happened after Peter preached his first sermon.
After Peter preached his first sermon, that was around the year 33 A.D., the next 30 years he meandered through the Mediterranean world, eventually arriving in Rome, where he would plant the Christian faith, and not only plant the Christian faith, he would give his life in witness for Christ. He was crucified upside down in the very spot of modern-day St. Peter's Square, and he was buried in the very spot directly beneath the high altar in St. Peter's Square. His bones are still there, and it can be visited, and it's that piece. Of course, the center of the Christian faith is the incarnation of the Son of God into the world. But derivatively, our faith is incarnational, meaning we make flesh of things that are not merely ideas. So we don't just take ideas, we make them into reality. Mm-hmm. Sacraments are things, for instance. And when it comes to the leadership of our faith, we are tied to the apostles. We say we're one holy Catholic and apostolic church. Our faith depends on their witness, and it's their physicality means something to us. So the place where Peter, the chief and leader of all the apostles, shed his blood makes Rome a very, very special place. Add to that, of course, that Paul, the greatest missionary, also shed his blood in Rome on the spot where the basilica named for his in honor, St. Paul outside the walls, stands till today. These guys consecrated a city, making a religion that is Middle Eastern in origin somehow become Roman, which is very, very different from the Middle East. And of course, there are Middle Eastern and Eastern expressions of the one faith of Christ, but nevertheless, the Roman accent that we have on our faith, that most of us here in America have and in the Western world have, that comes from the blood of Peter and Paul shed in the city of Rome.
Now, tell us about just how influential Rome was for the sake of the propagation of the early gospel, then. It's, again, one of these great ironies or accidents of history, but as St. John Paul tells us, there in the eyes of God, there are no coincidences. The security that the empire brought about and its roads and its system of roads and communications allowed for the spread of Christianity and this travel and the spread of Christians beyond the year 325, meaning beyond the year in which Christianity became illegal. So became legal, rather. Rome had two ironic jobs in spreading the faith. Number one, in suppressing it and engaging in periodic acts of martyring their leaders that inspired the faith. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of Christians, Tertullian tells us, in around the year 200. So we had Christians growing because of the witness of these martyrs. And then, once Christianity is legalized in 325, it begins to spread across the European world thanks to the Roman Empire, and then the system of laws and governance that Rome had established in different places across the empire, even after the empire, or in the place of all Europe, even after the empire receded,
kept some sort of a structure there. Things that we call today like dioceses and parishes come out of those are Roman terms. And eventually what happens is the Christian vision of things is it imbues, it endows, it incarnates within Roman systems of law, and which is in turn mixed with barbarian systems, say in France and in England and in Ireland, in places you have this fusion of cultures. And it's the faith that unites all these different people. And what on earth would unite people as different as the English, the French, and the Slavs? It's only the Christian faith. And we have all these, they all have their own particularities, but it's a Christian faith with a Roman style, and in particular what we call, just what we usually refer to as the Mass, is probably called the Roman rite of the Mass. That is the form of the Mass that was practiced in Rome. It's brought to there by St. Peter and then developed gradually over the centuries. That's what's made it this definitive mark on the Catholicism that most of us in this country are familiar with, and the journey lives on. The adventure of the faith continues. Pentecost is still rolling.
Contrary to the attacks that therefore Catholicism is a Roman religion, not a Christian religion, what would the response be? Because like you've rightly mentioned, there's a significant Roman influence to the way Catholicism is structured, but that's a great thing.
Yeah, so Christianity is unique in the sense that it takes the universal, God, and he becomes flesh. He becomes the particular. He becomes a man at a particular time, particular place, particular ethnicity, and what happens is the faith incarnates itself in different places. We have one Lord, one baptism, one faith, but it gets different accents and emphases depending on the people who practice that faith. And you could even go back just a few generations in this country where you had what we now refer to as ethnic neighborhoods and ethnic churches, Italian churches, Irish churches, German churches, and so on. It's one faith. In fact, they all had celebrated the same Mass in Latin, but there were different accents and flavors, different ways of emphasis of being Catholic that being Irish or being German or being Italian brought about. And likewise, the Roman way of being Catholic has a particular way. We have a Mass, which is a particular austerity to it, particular brevity to it, and a particular nature of prayer that was developed in particular by the monastery and the Western monastic tradition. Prayer and work and praying of the liturgy of the hours and making the liturgical year the center of our prayer and our Christian life. These are all Roman features that are just take the one faith and just put an accent on it, because you can't have, there's no such thing as, there's universal, but we only access the universal through the particular. So inevitably, how we live the faith in a particular location will look a little bit different depending on where people are. Think of religious orders. The Dominicans and the Jesuits and the missionaries of charity and the Franciscans are all a little bit different. They have different emphases. It's one faith, but they have the different emphases lead them to do different things, to look different, to act different, and that is a good thing.
We also want to, we're running out of time, but we also want to very briefly juxtapose the reality of Roman Christianity with Byzantium and the Eastern heritage.
Yes, that's very good, and especially today when these debates that we have ongoing about Christian nationalism, church and state, all these different things. The Eastern Byzantine Church was married to the emperor. The emperor really was the leader of the Christian faith, and it was his way of doing things, or the highway. In the West, we have this developing distinction between the role of the secular ruler, give to Caesar what is Caesar, and give to gods what is God's, and then the religious ruler. So they had the two spears. Not to say that this is not a Thomas Jefferson sort of thing. We put a wall between church and state. That's nonsense. But the idea is that they're functioning. The juridical functioning of the church is distinct from the juridical functioning of the state, and that's the way things have developed in the West. And then under that bigger umbrella, the Pope becomes the leader of all the Western Christians.
David, as usual, tremendous joy. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Marcus.
My guest has been David Bonagura. He wears a lot of hats, prolific author, professor of theology, and we've been talking about the very distinctly Roman character of Christianity, which is an historical and frankly providential heritage. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.